Hello, everybody, and welcome to the LFC Transfer Room live stream with myself, Toria, and Brandon. I do apologise about the bit of a late start, some technical issues, and just waiting on a couple of people to come in and join us. So, without further delay, should I say, is probably the best word to go about it. We'll get into the news, which has given us some very juicy bits of news today, and what may be the first of many dominoes to fall. In the Premier League, with Everton having their 10-point deduction following breaches of financial fair play, which is absolutely fantastic news for any Liverpool fan to hear, because for 10 points for one breach, and a certain Manchester team have 115 breaches, as has been reported. So with that, Brandon, I'll go to yourself first on this. Do you think this is the first domino to fall with regards to the likes of Chelsea, the likes of Man City, and those types of teams getting caught up in this as well? And would you expect their sanctions to be much, much more severe given the severity of their breaches?
I would hope so. Like, obviously, in the grand scheme of things, Chelsea and Man City do have more power in like the grand scheme of football compared to Everton. So there's always that kind of worry that because of what they are, they won't be hit the way they should be, or they'll get more of a slap on the wrist than anything, or they'll find a way out of it or talk their way out of it, however it works. Hopefully this is like also the first, because we've kind of seen like financial fair play. We feel like we're the only club that kind of abides by it and we get punished for it. Like, hopefully that's kind of the changing, and kind of see more parity kind of start breaking up football, instead of having these, Bayern Munich winning for 10 years, though it's a bad example, but Man City now, if it wasn't for us, would have won the last how many Premier Leagues in a row. The good thing, I guess, for Everton, I'm not sure if we want to get to later, is that it happened this season when there's so many not Premier League quality squads that I think even with the 10-point deduction, they're going to be just fine. Like, one win, I think they're 18th, a win and a draw, they're back out of the relegation spots. So it's probably a good thing it happened now and not later in the year when it really could have crushed them, happening now and with the teams that are below them.
Yeah, it's even with a 12-point deduction, I think they would have been fine, purely because they have the likes of Luton. Now, in saying that, Luton are doing very well, all things considered, but they have the likes of Burnley, Bournemouth, Sheffield United, and what have you at that end of the table. So I don't think there's three teams worse than them at the minute, which is a hilarious concept to think about. But Tully, I'll pass it over to yourself. I'm getting the pronunciation of the name right. It's my first time on stream.
Yeah, exactly. Totally. Yeah, it's spot on.
Perfect. No, I just wanted to make sure. So with are you in agreement with Brandon that this may be the first domino to fall, and obviously with the size of City and Chelsea, maybe it drags on a little bit longer, but I think this one was fairly quick because Everton owned up to the mistake and they were happy to work with the Premier League to figure this out, which is probably why they didn't get as severe a punishment as they probably could have. I think they overspent by about £250 million, which by the book of the law should have been a 60-point deduction. So I think them acting in good faith has helped them an awful lot. Because one of Man City's charges is not helping the league and actually actively making it harder for them. Do you think it's the same domino that's going to fall, and City may end up getting the same level of infractions against them, or proportionally put against them, the same as Chelsea? Give me a couple of your thoughts on this so far and how it might have ramifications in the league.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, my heart goes out to Everton in a very limited way for obvious reasons. But yeah, I mean, they're kind of going to be like the sacrificial lamb, I think, in this situation, because now that this domino has fallen, the others will follow. Now there's like blood in the water, right? The Prem has kind of struck back for the first time. And now everyone's going to be looking at, that precedent that has been set by Everton, and they're going to say, okay, well, let's move on to the next one now. And there's obviously going to be pressure from, I'm sure, Everton themselves. There's going to be pressure from other clubs. And I think the world's eyes are firmly on the Premier League now as an organization to say, all right, like, good job. You got the little guys, right? How are you going to deal with the big boys now? And that's something that, yeah, I think it would just be a complete farce if we got too much farther down the road without some kind of idea of what was going to happen to City and Chelsea. Even if, and I've heard this as well, suggestions of, okay, there's 115 charges. That's a lot. And on top of that, you are dealing with organizations that have access to the best lawyers, which will complicate things, and governments in the case of City, right? So that being the case, okay, well then let's start getting some traction. Let's get some of these punishments coming in, right? Let's get some of these charges getting dealt with, so that people know that, hey, it's not going to be like 10 years down the line and maybe something happens. It's like, no, we see that they're working on it now, and that gives people at least a little bit of peace of mind to know that, okay, they won't get away with this, and they're going to be, held to account.
Yeah, I'd hope so. Now, Jim Hughes makes a good point here that Everton are challenging the deduction too, so it could be reduced. I have the statement here, the club statement here beside me. Everton Football Club is both shocked and disappointed by the ruling of the Premier League's Commission. The club believes that the Commission has imposed a wholly disproportionate and unjust sporting sanction. The club has already communicated its intention to appeal the decision and the Premier League. The appeal process will now commence, and the club's case will be heard by the appeal board appointed by pursuant to the Premier League's rules in due course. Everton maintains that it had an open and transparent information and has provided to the Premier League, in that it has always respected the integrity of the process. The club does not, that's a very important point, by the way, for those of you reading between the lines. The club does not recognise that the finding that it failed to act with the utmost good faith, and it does not understand this to have been an allegation made by the Premier League during the course of the proceedings. Also a very good point. Important point. I'll explain why in a moment. Both the harshness and severity of sanctions imposed by the Commission are neither fair nor a reasonable reflection of the evidence submitted. The club, this is my favourite part of this now. The club will also monitor with great interest the decision made in any other cases concerning the Premier League's profit and sustainability rules. Everton cannot comment on this matter any further until the appeal process has concluded. Essentially saying, with that last comment, if we're going down, we're bringing every single one of you with us. And I absolutely love that. It's the best way to go. With the other comments previously, it maintains it's contained and open and transparent in the information that is provided the Premier League, and that it has always respected the integrity of the process. That's a shot at Man City and their charge for basically trying to pull the wool over the Premier League's eyes. The club does not recognise that the finding it has failed to act with the utmost good faith, and it does not understand this to have been an allegation made by the Premier League during the course of proceedings. Essentially, we've been acting in good faith. We feel that we shouldn't have gotten as bad of a decision as this. To be honest with you, I think they got away light. It's an interesting one, because that final paragraph before they say they can't comment any further, not only will Everton be watching with great intrigue into the rest of the league, but we had this discussion in the chat in the WhatsApp group. Tony, I'll go to yourself first on this. Some are of the opinion that Man City and Chelsea are untouchable due to their size and financial backing, especially Man City. But the argument that I was making in the chat was that, realistically speaking, this is more of a potential loss of earnings court case, along with the financial fair play rules being breached. And if the sanctions against Chelsea and Man City get brushed under the rug, the Premier League then have to face the wrath of 18 teams calling their bluff and calling corruption and calling brown envelopes full of money being handed under the table. Whereas if they put the hammer down on Chelsea and City, they appease 90% of the league rather than upset 90% of the league. So do you think City is going to get away with this? Because they got away with what happened with UEFA a couple of years ago, but that's UEFA. They're even more corrupt again. So exactly. Do you think Chelsea and City have a chance of getting off scot-free with this? Because it's interesting to think about, because the ramifications from either decision are going to ripple through the Premier League for decades.
No chance they get away with it. No chance. If they do, it's kind of like you pointed to, it would just blow up the whole league. Not only start like a brand new war between the clubs, obviously mainly all the clubs against those two, but it would also just completely destroy the league as an organization, right? There'd be zero trust. Everyone would look to pull out. I think you want to talk about super leagues and all these other things, that would just add all kinds of fuel to that fire, right? Saying, look, you guys can't even run your own organization. Why would we stay here? We're going to go make our own, right? And that would get a lot of people to move over to that idea. And I think that the Prem officials should be smart enough to know that that's a very, very realistic possibility if they choose to go down that route of not punishing them. Now, that being said, obviously I get the pressures there, right? No one wants to pick a fight with the biggest guy in the room, so to say. Man City, Chelsea are obviously two very, very big clubs, but at the same time, justice has a way of bringing people together, right? And when there's a sense of injustice, it's going to be very, very tough to sweep something like that under the rug. So I wouldn't want to be in their shoes. Obviously, I think now I wouldn't be surprised to see if this really impacts things actually in the league itself as we go along as well. Because, if I was Erling Haaland, right? If I was Sterling, I'm looking at these and I'm saying, oh man, like, what are we actually playing for? Like, this can't be too far down the road now, right? Now that, the wounds have been opened. So let's see.
Yeah, this is going to be very interesting, and it's going to be the talk of the league for quite a long while. Haylor, the thing that I want to get into here is so the breach itself, they overspent by about £250 million. I believe it's between 250 million and 300 pounds by the book of the law. And now don't quote me on this because this is what I've been reading from other news outlets and source outlets. By the book of the law, the league could have thrown a 60-point deduction at them. Essentially, they're looking at it on a case-by-case basis. I'm not sure the exact reasoning behind why it was exactly 10 points. I would imagine it's a combination of issues, much similar to the fact that Everton have been acting in very, very good faith. They found the cooked books. They said they alerted the Premier League. They said I don't think it's much the losses, Helier, as it is just spending losses and a combination of factors. Now, this is just from my reading of the news outlets themselves, but it's a combination of factors that probably led to the 10-point deduction. It's maybe the severity of it, how close they were to losing it. Or how close they were to the dotted line, and the fact that they acted in such good faith, like they found the cooked books and it's straight away, and they presented it to the league openly. It wasn't that the league investigated them; they openly admitted. They basically confessed to the fact that in the takeover that's been occurring, they just cooked the books and they just didn't present properly, and that's why they've gone into it. So with that, I have a feeling that's why it's the 10-point deduction. But yeah, it's an interesting one. I'd love to know the actual dynamics behind it. But before we get into that, before we even find anything out about that, I'll have a look at that. Look for that on Twitter and see if anybody can come up with an actual explanation on why exactly it was 10 points. I think the Premier League will come out and release something in a little while saying this is why, and they'll go about it that way. But it's an interesting one. But I'll move on to Brandon, because there's a point here that I want to do, and then Hassan is here as well. I'll add him in as well now in one moment. Jim Hughes makes an excellent point. It's a very nice coincidence. It's that Man City have released their most profitable year ever, even though they can't fill their stadium, and it's almost as if they're bragging about it. But Brandon, I'll throw the same question to you that I gave to Tolly. Do you think Man City or Chelsea can get away with this, or do you think that the writing has been on the wall and the precedent has been set with Everton so far, and City are going to get bet?
Yeah, I really hope it is the case of this is the first domino to fall, because I'm kind of with Toily. Like, if it happens and they don't do anything about it, and they kind of let them slap on the wrist, maybe just a financial penalty, no points penalty, nothing like substantial, I could really fall out of the love of the game on that one. Just like, what's the point of even watching this? Like, it's just not to make it too American here, but it just same thing with like Major League Baseball over here.
Oh, 100%.
A few years ago with the Astros, when they were caught majorly cheating the World Series, and they did literally nothing except some financial penalties. That was the moment where I'm like, I don't really care anymore. And I barely watched baseball ever. And that was my main thing growing up, was baseball. Like, that's what I love more than anything. So that killed it. Like, that could be the same thing here. If they don't do anything about it, the Super League, which I was wholly against, would be, I'm like, cool, let's do that then, because obviously the FA doesn't give a crap about what's going on. So, yeah, I really hope and like cross fingers and everything that this is the first domino to fall. And then real quick, wonder if COVID had something to do with Everton only getting a 10-point thing. Like, obviously a lot of teams lost a lot of money.
Too. Yeah.
I think COVID they factored in COVID like to their losses a little bit. So not to hit them with the full 60-point ban they could have got. Like, well, COVID obviously hurt you guys just like it hurt everybody.
Yeah, so I think Helier, I think that Brandon makes an excellent point there. I think that might be one of the reasons as well. But this is an excellent point. Hassan, I'll come to you now in a moment with this. So the moral of it is, if you're honest and you cooperate with the Premier League, you get punished. And if you're dishonest and don't cooperate with the Premier League, you get away with it. This is in relation to Man City's 115 charges and Everton's 1. Helier, I think the mistake that Everton made was they only had 1 charge. If they had another 114 on top of it, they 100% would have gotten away with it. Hassan, with the news that's come out with Everton giving their 10-point deduction and the possibility that this is the first domino to fall in a chain of many with the likes of Chelsea and the likes of Man City, and how long it's taking for their process to go through with the likes of Abramovich and his offshore tax havens and funds that he's put in. Give me a couple of your thoughts on the announcement, first of all, with the 10-point deduction. And do you think the likes of Man City and Chelsea have the power to be able to get away with something like this? And it's just that Everton don't, unfortunately.
Stephen, can you repeat it? Your voice was cutting off.
No problem. What point did it cut off, or I just repeat the whole question?
Yeah, I think you were asking that maybe Chelsea or City can avoid the charges. Was it?
Yes, that's essentially it. And if it's the fact that they're such big clubs that they can afford the lawyers to put so much red tape on it, and that Everton just seemingly couldn't. But at the same time, Everton volunteered this information, and City and Chelsea seem to have been probed and investigated by the Premier League. It's a very interesting concept to see. Do you think Man City and Chelsea could possibly even get away with this at all, or is this the writing on the wall and it's just a matter of time before it happens at this point?
I think this has just made it interesting, because before that we all were talking about it, but nothing was coming out of it. It was becoming a joke, 15 charges and nothing is happening and all that. But now they have made the things interesting. Maybe they are testing the waters with these charges coming out, and Everton can appeal for them also. So we'll see that what will happen about like the appeal with Everton. But they will be sweating and making calls to their lawyers and figuring out what will be their next step.
Yeah, it is very. I find it very interesting myself with just how this could progress, because I think somebody done the maths on it, and if Man City were to receive the same punishment that Everton have received, they would have a points reduction, proportionally speaking, they would have a points deduction of 1,150 points. If it was proportioned.
They'll be playing Wrexham.
Since 2000. Yeah, no, they won't be playing Wrexham. They'll be in the National League North.
That's like Sunday League, right?
They'll be in the National League North. They'd have been relegated 7 times over, essentially.
It will be good to see them on the documentary.
Yeah, all or nothing, clearly.
Man City, all or nothing. Here we go again.
But it's interesting, because that would have averaged out, since 2011, that would have averaged out at 8.5 points per season. And then see the interesting point of it is what's happened now with the likes of Leicester, Burnley, and like who else was it? Southampton is the other team, or Sunderland? Who's the other team? There's 3 teams.
Leeds, I think.
Leeds. Thank you, Hassan.
Yeah.
So there's Leicester, Burnley, and Leeds that have now began legal action for the course of £300 million against Everton due to the financial cheating, which ended up in those teams being relegated in those years where they wouldn't have been. It's that interesting fact that brings me to the likes of City and Chelsea, because especially with City, since Man City won the league, 7 times since 2011, they've generated 1.05 billion pounds in revenue coming into themselves. That's purely from winning the Premier League. That's not including TV rights. That's not including Champions League football. That's not including sponsorship money. That's not including Champions League TV rights. That's not including the winnings from the likes of FA Cups, Carabao Cups, Community Shields, European Super Cups, all that jazz. It's an interesting one because realistically, there are billions, if not tens of billions of pounds on the table here in potential earnings lost. For example, if somebody was, I'll give you an example of one of the years ago. I can't remember the exact way it fell, but City won, Liverpool came second, and then everybody fell in behind them. If City had a proportional points deduction that brought them out of the top 4, well, that would have pushed another team up into the top 4, which would have meant Champions League wages. It would have meant Champions League funding. It would have meant more TV rights. It would have meant more airtime, more sponsorship money, better transfers, and possibly could have put a team on a completely different path. That's one team. Now magnify that by 19 to 18 teams, and then magnify that again by 12 years. And James, I know you say here, give back the titles. As much as I would love for that to happen, it won't, purely because they can't remove titles. And I don't want them to remove titles. I want them to keep the titles and make everybody know they cheated to get them and devalue them. I couldn't give a toss about the title itself. It's at the end of the day, we all knew they were cheating for years. We all knew that they were absolutely cooking their books for years. It's never been a question to anybody with 2 brain cells in their head. We just couldn't prove it. That was the thing behind it. And Hassan, I'll come to you on this and sort of get a couple of your thoughts on it, and then I'll go to yourself, Brandon and Tully, as well. Is the legal ramifications that we're seeing Leicester, Leeds, and Burnley take against Everton. Names are escaping me today. Against Everton, a similar situation could happen with Man City. Do you think it's a hard one to gauge, but given the length of the legal and financial ramifications, do you think that this is the beginning of the end for City?
Sadly, no, because as you know, City are just not a group or something. It's a whole country behind it, and like if they start going through them, the sheikh will come in, the prince and all that. The government will also be under pressure to come up with some middle ground. So and they have heavily invested in not just on the football side of things. They have invested in the community and all that in Manchester. So they have, as much as haters out here, they have many supporters in that area for them also. And uh, with Chelsea again, maybe Chelsea, because it was started with Roman, maybe they will be given a punishment harsher than City. But City will be given, but not that harsh like maybe Chelsea and Everton.
I'd have to disagree with you on that one. I think City are going to get the total book thrown at them, regardless of what backing can come from the state. And I understand the power that they have in that part of the world. But realistically, if you're brought with a class action lawsuit of potential earnings lost due to your breaches of the financial rules and essentially cheating, we'll call it what it is, it's cheating, that you're operating outside of the rules that other clubs are being liable to be held to. The likes of, like, the fact that it's, and I said this in the group chat as well, it's infuriating to be one of few teams that actually obey the rules and still have pushed a team of cheaters so far, so often. It's infuriating, and it'd make you want to just turn and say, well, fuck it, why don't we just cheat as well? But then it's an interesting, because then as bad as the things we say about FSG, the one thing that we can always say is that they've always kept us in the black, where we've no debt. It's a fantastic thing to say.
Yeah.
It's and Halier, to address your comment here is what will Burnley, Leeds, and Leicester City get? They will sue for their potential earnings. So because they got demoted to the Championship, their TV rights went down, their sponsorship money went down, their salaries and everything went down. So players lost earnings, board members lost earnings due to club size reducing. That's just to name a few things. Because that happens with every team that goes down and every team that comes up. TV rights get bigger and everything. It's not just the 100 million, because to stay in the Premier League, you get 100 million for staying up. It's I think that's about it, with TV deals and everything included. But there's potential earnings there. Like Leicester could have turned it around and maybe finished higher in the league or what have you. And it's not just them. There's so many other teams that could do the same thing. And it's because any team that finished below Everton that particular season could turn around and be like, oh, well, we should have finished higher and gotten more earnings and more TV rights and more sponsorship money for finishing higher and maybe hitting goals. It's a perpetual snowball of a problem that will continue to grow and grow and grow. And it's something that I could see massively changing the landscape of the footballing world at the moment. Brandon, I'll come to you on the next part of it, is that Hassan thinks that City have the lawyers to get away with this. And he's probably right, they do. Because they've put it on this far so far. So Hassan isn't wrong in his thinking on that.
10 almost years.
Sorry, what'd you say, Hassan? I couldn't hear you there.
I'm saying for almost 10 years they are doing this and nothing is happening. And they are saying that they have revenues and all this. Nobody know. I live in Pakistan. I know many football fans. I don't even know a single City fan. So they boast about that they are now a big club and all that. But they are nothing but they are doing this blatantly.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you, but I think the fact that they've been getting away with it for 10 years and plus years is because the Premier League's 115 charges was a 4 to 5 year investigation. So this was a big thing. Like, it wasn't just something small, like a little probe that happened with Everton. I think this is a massive thing. But Brandon, the question that I was going to ask yourself is do you think City's lawyers can get them off the hook here? I think we'll just focus on City, because to be honest with you, the way Chelsea are at the moment, I don't have any fear of them whatsoever. They're a tin pot club at this moment. They're falling apart. But with the likes of City and their financial power and state backing, essentially, is there a world where you could see them get slapped with so many lawsuits that they end up having assets seized? Like the City ownership, that is, would end up having to pay massive fines, massive payouts to clubs if found guilty. I understand it's a big if, but I asked Hassan, could this domino that falls with Everton be the first domino that leads to the downfall of City?
Very much so. It really could be. I just think in the world that we are in today, I'm not sure how many people watch Netflix, but Fall of House of Usher really dealt with this. Like, the uber rich are able to kind of just get away with whatever they really want, no matter what like lays behind them. Like, they can just leave destruction in their wake. Like, so really they are that type of wealthy that I really could see them getting off. It really shouldn't. It really can't get away with this. They just can't. Like, to keep the integrity, I think it could be, I'm trying to think of like the best way. Like, could be just, I could see their state, like, if they don't get fined at all, I could see like the kind of the anti-Super League protests that were like happening all over again and being much more violent in nature. Just like this is because football is not just a game for most fans. It's an absolute way of life. Like the whole, Liverpool's a religion, Anfield's our church type of talk. Like that's how people feel about their clubs. And if their clubs, like, especially think of a club like Reading, who are in complete like financial dire straits, like where would they be maybe if, City had to go down that year because they don't have all the financial cooking of the books. So maybe they're still fine into Premier League and maybe they're pushing for Europe. But no, right now they're in the bottom, I think, of the Championship or League One. I think League One, and just have no money to do anything. So this has to be the line in the sand. This has to be, you kind of have to make the example of City. Everton is just the first team to get caught. City has to be the example because they are a big club. They are the big financial club, the big hitters of the league. If you're going to do this, you have to make the example of them.
Yeah, I think it is the first domino to fall, but I also have a fear that they will get away with it. Totally, if they get away with it, it basically just tells the rest of the league, every team included, and Everton will be the first to start suing, but it'll tell every team in the league, all 19 other teams, fuck it, spend what you want. There's no rules. This is FIFA without the rules on. You've gotten 500 million financial takeover investment. Go buy who you want. It doesn't matter. It's very two sides of two different sides of the same coin, in that if they find them, they appease the other 19 teams and the footballing world. Whereas if they let them get away with it, or there's corruption here, like I think the eyes of the world are on this right now after the decision was made on Everton, and the Premier League, I think, is feeling the pressure on it. And I think Man City are also feeling the pressure on it. I have a feeling Pep may be in his last days as a Man City manager, not to be fired, but to leave of his own accord and leave on a high, so to speak, in inverted commas. Do you think City get away with this in any way, shape, or form, or are you still of the mind, as you mentioned earlier, that City are going to get absolutely decimated with sanctions?
It would be so embarrassing for the Premier League if they did 5 years of investigative work only for City to get away with it.
Yeah.
That would be like in the all-time fails of business, right? Where you do that much homework, right? And just get absolutely torn apart anyway by a member of your organization, right? Like,
employee you're you, essentially.
Yeah, like you're the boss, right? And you're getting done in by some junior, right? Even though City's a very, very rich junior, but still, that's basically the dynamic there, right? So for them to get away with it would be, horrific on so many levels. And I think actually this is a big, big reason why now we see the rise of the Saudi League, for example, and a lot more of these leagues abroad, specifically in the Middle East, is because I think the powers that be in these countries are realizing, oh wait, we can go buy the club. We're going to get a lot of stick for it because people are going to bring up all of our human rights abuses and all these other things, right? People will bring those things up. We might get the club. All right, we bought the club, but now we can't spend the money as fast as we want. So now it's going to take years and years and years. And I mean, that's the route City has to take. That's the route that Newcastle is currently taking. And that's why I think that they've just said, you know what, screw it. Let's just make our own league and start buying them out and just importing, right? And we'll just grab your best player, right? And that's very much how I think all of our fan base felt this summer, right? With Salah, we were all kind of like, please God, no. Like, don't let this happen to us. And you feel powerless, right? And I think that this is the Premier League's chance to actually say, hey, guess what? Yeah, you might have the money, you might have some power, but not here. Not here. And that is something that I think the Premier League needs to take an opportunity to do. And as I've heard a lot of people say, these rules need to have teeth, right? There needs to be something there. Otherwise, people will just go all out and start doing whatever the hell they want. And the second you do that, you lose all integrity in the sport anyway. And then you really do have an exodus of people saying, hey, I'm going to be an American football fan. So there you go.
Oh, well, I'm already an American football fan, so
Same.
They can't lose me at this point. But it's I think this is a turning point in the Premier League at the moment, just purely from they have a decision to make, and this decision will shape the Premier League for the next 20, 30 years. It will either shape it for the better or for the worse. If they sanction City and sanction Chelsea, it will shape it for the better. If they don't do anything and sit on their hands, it will change it for the worst. And hopefully they make the right decision on it and they don't buckle to monetary corruption. But as Halier points out, you nearly expected at this point that there's some form of financial corruption. There's some bookies somewhere making money on something, and when you have people that are in the game that see that mountain of money that can be made, I'll just use the referees' decisions as an example, or even Paqueta betting on himself to get yellow cards.
Getting
like
a yellow, yeah.
That's the stupidest thing I've ever seen in my life.
That is the easiest one to get caught for, is the yellow.
Like, Jesus, I have no problem with players gambling. It's your money, you've earned it, do what you want with it, and nobody can tell you otherwise. But if you are going to gamble, and you are going to gamble on you shouldn't be able to gamble on your own sport, but you can gamble on other sports. I have no issue with that. If you are to gamble, you should be able to then you should declare it to the Premier League or whatever league that you're in, and they should have access to your account at all times. If you're not doing shady shit, then you have nothing to hide. That's the way I look at it. It's a better vice than any of the other shit that they could be doing when you think about it. And at the end of the day, it's only hurting themselves if they go and spend too much money. And that's
the thing, right? I think it's really good that you brought up the whole betting part of it, because if players are getting punished for things like that, right? But entire organizations aren't getting punished for decades, literally like a decade worth
the same thing.
Like, what the hell are we doing? Like, what are we actually doing? That would be shambolic. And to kind of give my 2 cents on what I think would happen, I'm somewhere in the middle, right? Because I do think that they do have the legal whereabouts to kind of to figure out some kind of way to get nowhere near the proportionate punishment. But
yeah,
I think they're going to land somewhere in the middle and say, okay, look, like, we feel the way the wind is blowing. We know we're kind of screwed here, and we're going to cut some kind of deal. So this whole thing is over, so to say. The investigation's done. Exactly. And we'll take a relegation, whatever, because it could be worse. It could be worse. It should be worse. But
I think a relegation for them is death. If
Juventus did it, Juventus have done it.
Yeah, but Juventus don't have a wage bill of €500 million a year. That wage bill, the second they hit the championship, that wage bill shrinks. They have no European football. They're playing in the Papa John's Trophy. Imagine Erling Haaland against some fucking poor League Two team. He's going to want to leave. I think he's gone in the summer. His agent is being very coy about how how his contract is at the moment. She was asked straight out, "You were in Madrid. Does he have a clause for Madrid?" And she said, I can neither confirm nor deny. I don't know. And that's for Erling Haaland to reveal. And I'm like, that just essentially answers the question that yes, he does have one. That's the stupidest fucking coy answer you could have given. That essentially says, yeah, he has one, but I can't say in public. Wink, wink. Like, it was so unsubtle. It was hilarious. I think he's gone next summer. I think Kevin De Bruyne is gone next summer. I think Pep goes into international management. Jamie Hughes mentions here he thinks they think he's going to Saudi. I think he's going to. I think he'll go international. And speaking of internationals, before we get on to that, I do want to ask everybody: do please like and subscribe. I haven't done that yet because we've just eyes on the prize here of getting Man City relegated. We'll start the campaign ourselves. We'll everybody hashtag relegate City and put it all over Twitter, and we'll start retweeting them for the laugh. But look, it's a very serious situation, and the integrity of the league is on the line. And realistically, I'm going to be perfectly honest with anybody that's in the group here today and anybody that's watching on the video later on. If nothing happens, City or Chelsea, I may just stop watching football, because what's the fucking point? That's just the way I look at it. But we'll move on from depressing topics and talk about our boys on their international performances. Before I get into that, though, please do like and subscribe. It really does help out the channel. We want to try and hit our 10K mark before we get to the next transfer window. It would be absolutely fantastic if we could hit that mark. And if you've done that already, please make sure to have your bell notification on for all future streams. We are live every day from 7:30 UK time. We weren't live yesterday due to an illness to poor Damon. He was a little bit under the weather, and just we couldn't go ahead with it. And it was a bit of a quiet week. It's international break week. It's always a dead week this week. Thankfully,
did that change?
Oh yeah. Thankfully, we had this absolute blessing of a day of news. It was beautiful, but thank God, it's news about somebody else and somebody we don't like. But to be fair, I feel a little bit sorry for Everton in it, because they're now the scapegoat. But I also feel happy that it's them, because they are now the precedent. That's the way that I look at it. And Jamie is obviously feeling very bad for Jamo here. As far as I'm aware, I think he's feeling better. I haven't spoken to him today, but I'm sure he'll land in. He might land in at some point and tell everybody all the good news and how much he loves FSG and everything like that. But no, we will move on now to our international players and how well they have got on, because I have a couple of stats here. And the first one that we're going to be looking at is, I say stats, I don't have stats necessarily, but we had attacking returns for every single one of our front four. And I say front four because it was Diaz, Nunez, Salah, and Jota all getting on the score sheet in some way, shape, or form. Jota had an assist from playing from left wing back for some particular reason. Nunez came on as a sub, bagged a goal in a man of match performance. Diaz scores the 2 in the Brazilian game against Colombia against his fellow Liverpool player Alisson, although I'm pretty sure Alisson may have pulled his punches a little bit when he seen Diaz going up for the ball, and I'm pretty sure he had a smile on his face when he seen that it was Diaz that scored, along with Diaz's dad being in the Premier in the stadium too. It was quite wholesome. And then Salah just decided to go off and bag it. Did he bag a hat trick or did he bag 4 goals? 4. Fuck me. Talk about hitting form right before a big game. Like, it's absolutely beautiful. Hassan, I'll ask yourself, out of the 4 performances, I have a feeling there might be one outlier here with 4 goals, but who did you enjoy most in their performances?
It was, I think Nunes' goal was really special for me, because the way he finished it, that's all we want from him.
Yeah.
Saw the goal, he stopped, looked towards the goal, and took the shot when it was on. Uh, it was, and they have ended the unbeaten run of Argentina. That was also special. Luis Diaz performance was the best of the lot, because it was against Brazil, and he could have got a hat trick, and he was unplayable for against them. And if it was, Brazilian fans was saying, if Ellison was not there, they could have even got 5 or 6 goals.
And Alisson
So
was
Ellison
even
performed
pulling his
really
punches.
well. So, and Jota assist was really, really sexy, if you have seen it.
It was beautiful. I did see it. It was absolutely fantastic. The one thing that I did love was Diaz was probably the best player, but Nunez's goal. I don't know if anybody watched the slow-mo. Has anybody seen the slow-mo?
Yeah.
So the little hezzy and then faint shot, but as he's fainting it, he looks up at the keeper and sees the keeper move and then snaps the shot. It's an absolute joy to watch it in the slow-mo, because you can see the composure that's there. And boy, oh boy, Jolie, if we've unlocked a Darwin Núñez that has that level of composure and he ends up banging a couple in against City, I think we go on a serious run. But who do you think out of the performances that were there? Salah with his 4 goals, Diaz playing like a man possessed, Núñez with some silky finishing, or Jota with his absolutely sexy assist?
Oh man, where do you go? Where do you go? I mean, obviously, I think Salah is the standout. 4 goals, calm as you like. Each one was better than the next, which is just what you love to see. Of course, it's fantastic, but in terms of importance, I don't think you can shy away from Diaz, right? Doing it against Brazil, against our very own Alisson, who was man of the match for Brazil. Like, he was outstanding, and for Diaz to still do that under the circumstances, yes, his dad is back, but at the same time, his dad's in the crowd, the emotions there, and it's just, he rose to that moment. And yeah, I thought that was very beautiful on all levels for us as a, obviously his team, but for Colombia as a country as well. So I would definitely say Diaz, but don't take anything away from any of the other performances by any means. Especially shout out to Nunez, man. Like what a player. And he did it against the best goalkeeper in the world, apparently. So I mean, incredible, really. What
not
a guy.
not even against the best goalkeeper in the world. Absolutely rocketed it between his legs, made him look like a fool. But
I mean,
best goalkeeper in the world.
that shot of Martinez just looking up in the crowd like, what have I done to deserve this? It's like, mate, what haven't you done?
Exactly. Brandon, how about yourself? Dia, and I have to add this in as well. Szoboszlai had an assist as well with an absolute beauty of a pass. So that's another one as well. So it seems like we're hitting form at the right time for us to come out of this last international break before the AFCON in January and maybe go on a big run. Now, I say that, I may jinx us, but I want to touch wood and I want to sort of keep some reservations here. I know we're going up against City, but realistically, this is a fantastic hit of form that we've just landed on with all of our front four. I say front four because realistically we could start anybody against Man City, depending on how the next international game goes. But give me a couple of your thoughts on the performances. Was there any standouts for you? Maybe somebody that we haven't mentioned so far, or how are you so far with it?
I think just with all the added emotion, like Toilet was talking about with Diaz, it's got to be Diaz. Just playing Brazil, and then the father in the crowd, like all that, just adding to probably the way he played. I think the biggest issue really for City, not just City, is the midday kickoff right after the international break. Because that's always our bogey. That's more like than anything, our worst opponent of the season is that kickoff time after an international break. We could go play play Columbus Crew here, and we'd still probably get a 1-1 draw at the most. So I don't know. Szoboszlai obviously taking a team like Hungary, who are not heavyweights in the international scene, and like what they're qualified for Euros now, I think correctly. So that's massive. It's huge. Like for a country to kind of be able to get that done, and Szoboszlai being the heart of it, it's also highly impressive. Darwin, I hope he can take that finishing he always has with Uruguay and bring it back to Liverpool, because I feel like every time he leaves, he's bagging 2 or 3 on international duty, then coming back and maybe misses a sitter, or he scores an absolute worldie against Bournemouth. That's what the 50-50 with Darwin's always the issue, and composure's been a thing. If he's getting the composure, then in my mind we got maybe the next best striker in the world.
Yeah, I think he's going to absolutely explode. Like, he's only 23. He's got another 10. He's got another 10 years in him if he wants. And what I love about him is his effort and what he wears the club on his sleeve. And an interesting fact that we only found out as well, he apparently was meant to have trials for Liverpool. Now, there's been speculation that this is actually the Liverpool in Uruguay, because there is apparently a Liverpool in Uruguay, or the actual the Liverpool club, that Darwin Núñez had potential trials for Liverpool, but ended up getting an ankle or a knee injury 10 days before he was supposed to go, and he never came. If it was true that was the case and he was meant to come over to Merseyside as a teenager and go on trials for Liverpool as a youth squad, holy fuck, isn't that just a beautiful way things come around? Now, if it was the Liverpool in Uruguay, sure, look, we'll claim him as ours. It's fine. It's okay. He's here now. We love him. We absolutely love our little ball of chaos, and it's absolutely fantastic. And another point that I wanted to bring out, and I'll get a couple of your guys' opinions on it as well, is as Jamie mentions him here, Andre was actually Brazil's best player. It was absolutely beautiful to watch. And before I get into that, I see Paul mentioned a comment here that Klopp is really tried Trent in the midfield option. I don't think the next game is the best option for that, Paul, and I do want to sort of make it a caveat that they're playing Malta. This England team, with the talent that they have, should absolutely be battering Malta off the pitch. Trent in midfield is grand against teams like Malta, and maybe like a Sheffield that we'll be playing fairly shortly as well. Myself personally, maybe you disagree with me, Paul, and maybe other people disagree with me as well. I just don't see him as a 6, even in a double pivot, to against bigger teams like a City. I just can't. I don't trust it. Rather than I can't see it, I just don't trust it. But with regards to Andre, I have some stats here that I want to throw up. because these are absolutely nuts for a guy in his first ever Brazilian start. So 80% long ball accuracy, 95% passing accuracy. He had 67 out of 70 passes completed. He won 6 of 8 duels, so 80%, and he'd recovered 5 recoveries. He had, he was an absolute monster, and I cannot wait to see him in a Liverpool jersey. And I hope to God he does come. I hope we get him, and I hope we get a left-sided centre back in the January window, because that would be absolutely fantastic. I think at that point then we can go on and challenge for the league. It will be beautiful to watch. Hassan, did you watch any of the Brazilian game itself with Diaz, or was it just, did you caught Diaz's highlights, or did you see any of Andre as well during that game too?
Yeah, I just saw the highlights. It was 5 a.m. here when the match started. So I just saw the. I am not getting attached to any player now after that last couple of windows, because when we get to attached like Bellingham, don't know what happens. So, but I trust our transfers. Whoever comes in is really Klopp transforms him. So we'll see. But I saw the match that Copa Libertadores. His performance was really good, really mature. He
Yeah.
was the best player. So if we are linked with him, and maybe we have understanding with their president, because we were patient, we said okay, let him go on the run of this cup, and we'll get him on January. Hopefully it's true. So if we get him, and you were telling about this, I'm watching that match also. Trent playing really well, but I was thinking today that Trent is really good with the balls, long balls, and this. I'm throwing a question for you guys also. I think on dead ball situation we should go with Soboslai now, because I don't think on dead and set pieces, I think Soboslai is more accurate than Trent. Maybe on free kicks, and also in crosses, and in dead ball situations. Soboslai will be more accurate. If you saw the match also of Hungary highlights, he picked out his player beautifully.
Yeah, I'd agree with you. Even penalties, I'd have Szoboszlai on penalties. He's missed one in of 16 that he's taken, and he's put them all in the same spot. He's only missed one penalty. That's nuts. I would have put him on, and actually I'd also have Van Dijk taking free kicks. If anybody ever seen Van Dijk take free kicks for
Yeah.
It's so
Netherlands
scary.
and for Celtic, it's terrifying. But I think Van Dijk is actually better in the air. I don't think you want your 6'4" centre back taking the free kick. I think he's more of a threat in the box to get something out of it, which is where I'm coming from. Kind of why I was so mad at Cody Gakpo taking a corner when the guy is 6'3" tall. Like, get in the box. Like, it's don't be out there taking a corner. I just thought that was a little bit silly. But to throw your question to Brandon and Toli as well, Hassan, would you? I'll throw it to yourself first, Toli. Would you have Dominic Szoboszlai as our set piece taker going forward, or would you be happy to have a mix up between himself and Trent?
Yeah, I mean, I think the only reason he hasn't taken that specific responsibility yet is simply just because he's new, right? It's give him some time, let them sort it out in training, right? Let them have a bit of a challenge between themselves and see what Klopp thinks. But yeah, I think Szoboszlai, it's disgusting the technique he has in that first assist he had last night, where he was just outside the box on the right side, crosses it in right from a set piece. And that was right in front of the goalie. The goalie got nowhere near it because it just had so much knuckle and dip on it. And you see that and you're like, wow, like if that's Van Dijk, he's eating that up every single time. Like it would just him and Matip, these two giants that we have, right? It would be horrifying. And we would basically become West Ham, just absolutely clinical from the corners. So I would definitely do it. And I think there's a lot of also opportunity there to have some clever set piece positions for Trent to take up. and shoot a long shot, right? A nice pass off from distance from Szoboszlai, give it to Trent, and Trent can ping it in or take a shot himself. So there's just so many options there for us. It's we're spoiled for choice.
Yeah, I think so as well. Brandon, I'm going to give you a bit of a different question because this is a two-parter. According to Dario AS, Kylian Mbappe is likely going to request a £30 million a year salary. Would you pay it?
I might need more time to give me for that answer. Oh, he's such a great player, but that's so much money. And at the same time, like, has PSG kind of made him into a diva that wouldn't work as hard for the team? There's all these like little questions. I don't think so. I think he would work hard enough for the team.
I'll give you the two hypotheticals. The first hypothetical is that we pay him, we get him on a free transfer. We pay him £30 million a year.
Didn't sell him off.
Sell him off in a year, and Real Madrid will basically cover the cost.
Yeah.
The other hypothetical is we get him on a free, pay him £30 million. He becomes the best player in the world for the next 6 years. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it would be worth it. Because the added like thing of selling him off in a year if it doesn't work out and he ends up being a disruption. But would that disruption be bad enough to like ruin the team like chemistry? Because sometimes disruptions aren't just one player; it can like kind of trickle throughout the whole team. So that's another thing. But the guy is such a talent that I think it would be worth it to take the punt on, especially on a free. And like I said, not the added advantage of we get $100 million in a year from Real Madrid, or probably more than that, just to get him off.
And we have the single best man manager in the world.
Right.
If anybody can pull a pressing monster, if anybody can pull another Mo Salah out of a player, and I think the only like for like player is at the moment. I know Paul is for anybody that doesn't know that Paul is a very staunch advocate of the fact that he thinks Mbappe is a passenger out of possession. I agree with him in PSG. He is, but that's not the style that he's been asking to play. But I completely agree with Paul in saying that he's a passenger out of possession. However, I think if there's any team and any manager that could turn him around and turn him into an absolute monster, and he's already a monster, and sort the character problems out, it has to be Klopp. I don't think any other manager could do it other than him going to a team like Real Madrid where the club is so much bigger than the player, and you will be disowned by the team if you don't perform and don't conform. Like, look at Gareth Bale. Exact same situation there. So there's when I'm not saying Mbappe is bigger than Liverpool, but he might think he would be. Whereas if he goes to Real Madrid, he 100% knows he isn't. That may quell the character problems that way. Brandon, the second part of the Go ahead, Tolly. Sorry.
I was just going to say really quick. It's so good that C Senor just came out, right? Bobby's book, because that shed a lot of light on how Klopp handles these things, right? Talking about Salah and Mane. Those two were at each other's throats for a good while, right? And it was really clear on the pitch, like very clear at moments. And people forget because now Salah is kind of like the senior citizen of the team, right? He's like the elder statesman. He's been there, done that. He was a diva himself. He was 100% a diva. And I think if Klopp can manage it as well as he did with those two, then no doubt in my mind, he can do it again with Mbappe.
Yeah, it is a big hypothetical. But Brandon, the second question, and I'll pose it to both Hassan and Toli as well, and to everybody in the chat, and this might be a bit of a hot take on this. Luis Diaz's father. It is true that Luis is a loyal Barcelona fan, and it would be his dream to go there. This came out in an interview. Now, the man's only 3 days out the jungle, and he's already posting this stuff. Happy that he's back and he's safe and everything, but he's only out the jungle. Like I guarantee you, he was just on a massive stag weekend away, and he just didn't want the wife to know. And this whole kidnapping was a ploy to get away with it. I joke. It was clearly a very tense situation. You could obviously see it. But he goes on to say, and it would be his dream to go there, Barcelona, that is. So far, I would like to thank Porto and Liverpool for the way that they've welcomed and received him. So it's an interesting thing. I'll give you the hypothetical, and I'll pose it in the chat as well. Totally yourself first. How much would you take for Diaz if you were to sell him either in January or in the summer?
I think transfer market's got him like at 75 mil right now. I would take, if he's playing the way he's playing, right around 100. I would say right around 100 million would be my sweet spot to kind of say thank you so much for everything you've done. We've taken care of you, because the way his dad talked there, it did not sound to me like oh, it would be so great if my son could play. It sounds like not like we just want to thank Porto and Liverpool for being great like babysitters, and he's gonna go now and play for Barca. Like that's the way it's kind of sounded to me. But yeah, I think for 100 million, you say we're blessed with so many attacking options, and that's more than enough to kind of go and make some big moves in other parts of the team that we need.
JB has mentioned here 75 million value per transfer market. Well, then you know for a fact he's going for double. That's exactly what's going to be happening there. Brandon, I'll throw the same question to you. What's your yes price on Luis Diaz? Because he could be technically the next Coutinho.
Mm-hmm. I'm gonna say I'm gonna get a little weird with it. I say 85 million up front, and then up to like 112 to 120 with add-ons. I think, he's a performance guy. I think he would easily hit those. So I mean, still give him leeway. Also, I don't know where Barcelona is going to get 85 to 100 million in their current state, unless something's completely changed. I've missed it, but that's going to be a lot of money for them to have to fork over. Maybe working with them a little bit. Obviously, we did the same thing with Coutinho. I can't remember what the initial fee was, but it was 142 with the add-ons, or I think it's somebody else. I can't remember.
No, that's about right. Well, see, Barcelona are selling parts of the old club. They're selling seats for like $2,000 a pop.
They're selling grass.
Yeah, they're selling plots of grass and seats from the old stadium, like anything to make a bit of money. So I think they'll be that. Like that tells you how desperate they are for funds right now.
Friends who own Ohio State's old football field, like they actually own like big plots of the grass that they like keep. Like I don't know, I think it's dead by now, but that was probably 20 years ago almost now. No, I think it'd probably be like around that 100 to 115 million range would have to be the like for sale price. Like I said, we're got plenty of talent in that region, so it's not imperative that we keep him. Like whenever we lost Suarez, it was like kind of we really needed to keep Suarez, but obviously he kind of forced our hands with his teeth.
Damn.
Yeah, I do not like Luis Suarez very much at all. As much as a great player he was, I do not like him at all. But that's a different story, different time. I think 110, 115 million. We got a lot of options. That leaves Cody to go back out into the left-hand side, which is more his comfort zone. So, I mean, we have options already in the squad. I mean, that's where he goes like to play. Darwin can even go out to the left-hand side. So it's an option where we have it's a position we have a lot of options in, but still, as great of a player he is, 100 to 115 million.
Hassan, similar price range for yourself. Would you go higher, go lower, or is he an untouchable for you?
No, 100 sounds about right. But I think it's almost a non-story. Almost all the South American players, if you ask them, these two clubs will come up. And I don't think Barcelona can afford him. And the other thing is Barcelona is already building a team. They have really nice young players coming through. Don't think they don't even want him. So it's just father maybe was thinking about these things in captivity, seeing his son in Barca shirt, and he came out and said it. So it's and also, but if really Barcelona wants him, we will take them to the cleaners like we did with Coutinho. So we'll get a really good deal, and we'll have our substitute players, with players we want, and we'll add up. So it will be a win-win for us.
I think so as well. With that bit of news and sad bit of news, I will say good night to everybody. Thank you guys so much for joining us for this hour. As Jamie has always been touting in the comments, be sure to hit the likes and help us hit that 10K mark with subscriptions. If you've already done that, please make sure to hit the bell notification for all future videos. We will be back again tomorrow from our for our 7:30 stream again. So hopefully we'll see you guys there. Thank you guys so much for joining us, and up the Reds, and we'll see you guys soon. Hopefully a bit more news next week when we get up to our 12:30 kickoff. We'll be back again next Friday with myself and whoever decides to join me for a pre-game warm-up stream, which is going to be great. I can't wait for that. Thank you guys so much, and everybody have a lovely evening, lovely rest of your day wherever you are in the world.